Welcome to What is Going Om for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on OMTimes' flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. Tonight's show is dedicated to something that is especially critical at this time when our world is struggling in the wake of a pandemic that has made us all aware that our health and the health of our planet are the most precious resources that we have. With me are two pioneers in the field of sound healing and harmonics and founders of World Sound Healing Day, Jonathan and Andi Goldman. They're going to share what's happening on February the 14th this year when thousands of people across the globe join together to send a sonic Valentine of healing sounds encoded with the energy of love and compassion to the Gaia Matrix, our beloved Mother Earth, with the intention of healing the planet and raising the consciousness of all living beings. Jonathan Goldman, Andi Goldman, welcome back to the show.
Sandie, what a blessing it is.
Hi, Sandie. We are delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. I mean, what a blessing you guys have created for the planet.
Well, we hope so. It is a marvelous way in which so many people can participate to bring healing not only to themselves, but to our beloved Mother Earth.
These are certainly interesting times, huh?
Aren't they just, yeah. And this is the 19 years this has been happening.
Yes, indeed. And, if you think about it, this is probably on a level, vibrationally, consciously on a level, just thinking about this, perhaps the 20th year, because the idea first came to us probably well over a year before it actually manifested, because the concept of doing this type of event basically was like, if you like, keyed in during a moment of meditation where this inner voice basically guided me, said, well, okay, you've been working now for over 20 years to help bring awareness of these sound for healing on a personal level. Now it's time to expand this and include planetary level. I thought, that's great. And, how do I do this? And then the transmission or whatever it was cut off, Sandie. So it was like, how do we bring sound as a planetary healing level to the planet? And ultimately the idea then came of creating World Sound Healing Day. You didn't ask that, but I'm just jumping in with
Well,
it.
I was going to ask that, actually, because I was very curious to know what sparked it off. And how did you, that first event, they're always, the hardest. How did you actually put it all together?
Well, Andi?
Well, we started talking to a lot of our colleagues and finding out who might be interested in collaborating with us, that we had this idea to have a planetary sound healing day. And little by little, we were able to find people in our field who would like to participate. And they created events, we created events, and little by little, it began to grow. Those seeds were planted. And of course, this was 20 years ago. And since we have now been doing this for so many years, it has exponentially grown and grown and grown and grown to where we have countries, 40, 50 countries all over the world participating now in World Sound Healing Day.
Yeah, I think that we first probably built, created a website for World Sound Healing Day, and then also created a very interesting thing. The concept even back then, 20 years ago, was that the Internet would be a powerful vehicle for transmitting consciousness and information if we can somehow get this encoded with the intention and energy of compassion and kindness. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that. So we created what is probably the world's first sacred sound temple in cyberspace called Temple of Sacred Sound. And this is still in existence and still up there, and we stress it less these days. But it's a place that people can go and literally sound forth in any of a number of different toning chambers, we call them. And there are these wonderful, you go in the Om chamber, for example, and you hear this wonderful Om created by thousands of people while looking at the screen with these wonderful geometric visuals floating ahead of you. So it's still a very nice thing.
And still very much a part of World Sound Healing Day. However, it was, Sandie, way back then, it was a visionary idea because no one had done anything like that. And, of course, that's hard to believe in this day and age because everything now is, definitely digital and virtual. But that was the very first one.
Back then is when I consider the Internet to have been kind of at its best in a way, because it was very innocent and everybody was very friendly, and you had kind of, these places to go and meet people in chat rooms and things, and it just seemed to be so full of hope and people connecting with joy and love, being able to connect with one another. And now it all seems to be a bit ho-hum. I can imagine what it must have been like then for people to gather together and think, oh my God, we can all connect and we can all share an intention.
But I had this show, for me, I guess it was a monumental thought, which was that on a level, the Internet was the neural net of our planet.
Yeah.
And that we really needed to activate the global heart of the planet. And in many different spiritual traditions, the connecting link between the heart and the mind or the brain is the sound center, is the fifth chakra, is sound. And so sound is a connecting link between speech and, not between speech, between heart and mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So that's why
Tell me what actually happens. I mean, is there, I'm ashamed to say that I haven't attended one, but I will make a point of attending this year's one.
It's never too late.
Never too late. Is there, one central part of the day that, it's the same time that everybody, chants together, or are people chanting all day long? Are they, sending that
Sandie,
intentional sound?
That's such a great question, because that is and has been the big to-do about if you were going to create a global event. And the two or three major questions are, the first question is, what would you call it? The second one is, would you do this at one particular moment in time and space? And three, if it was a sound event, would you have one particular sound? And initially, we tried to make it at 12 noon New York time, working with the sound ah. But if you think about that, that's very New York-centric, and somebody in Japan or India, that would not necessarily be a convenient day. It may not, so conceptually it would be the same time. Then we did it where it was every hour upon the hour, and we perceived that this wave of sound going through the planet. Then we just did whenever you can. And finally now what we've done is we've really, because this year, obviously, it's going to be a virtual event, and a lot of people, we still stress the ah sound, but at the same time, we've opened it up to incorporate any sound, whether it's a musical instrument, any tone, whether it's an om, a hum, or the ah, or even a sacred prayer or whatnot, anything, as long as it's done with the energy of love, gratitude, and compassion. It's a good sound at any time it's done, because on a level, if you think that time and space are truly only constructs of a, shall we say, a third or a dimensional consciousness, then you realize that, any time, any sound is a good sound.
Well, and Sandie, the most important thing is our intention. Yeah. And of course, we go back to that wonderful formula that Jonathan created, 30, 40 years ago, frequency plus intent equals healing. And so when people are sounding forth on February 14th, which is our World Sound Day of Healing, and they carry the intention of compassion, of loving kindness, of gratitude, of healing our planet, of healing all the sentient beings of our planet, holding that frequency, that intention of love, appreciation, that is such a major component in World Sound Healing Day.
Well, after 19 years, you must have created a very powerful morphic field there.
Well, I just really say thank you to all of the people throughout the planet, because it is really a co-creative experience for people. And so over all these 19 years, each person who has participated and contributed, they are the ones who have really built up this energy field that has made it today, in 2021, our 19th year, filled with literally tens of thousands of people.
Right. And what's interesting, if I may interject for just a second, is the concept that when we initially were doing this, it wasn't a first, but there surely weren't too many global meditations, prayers, or sounding events occurring. Now it feels as though there are many, and we give thanks for that. What a blessing. But back then there were less than a handful per year, maybe only 3 or 4. And we like to believe, indeed, a morphic field. And this, if I may just jump for a moment and tell you that at one level, I got very biblical about this and said, well, gee, if we all had 144,000 people sounding with intention and the same sound at the same time, we could really make a shift and change. And then I thought about it, and if you think, if you delve into a lot of the spiritual texts, as well as, we could talk about the scientific work now that's being done by things like the Global Consciousness Project, etc., it's not necessarily the number of people, but how, if you like, amplified and powerful they are. So looking at a lot of traditions are like 12, great masters who are keeping the world and planet in balance, or 36 or 72, or small numbers. So we like to think that a small group of accelerated beings can really make great shifts and change.
So before, were people actually gathering together in the same place at certain times around the world? And this year they've got to do it all virtually.
Well, Sandie, that goes back to what we were talking about initially with, should we do this at one particular time during the day, et cetera. And what it evolved into was that people would decide in their area, in their geographical location, that they would sponsor, they would coordinate a group of people who would come together in person, and they would then do their sound meditation. And it would happen at all different times throughout the planet, which really gave us the sense that we really like that a lot better, because it's that sound frequency just sort of ringing throughout the entire globe during that particular day, February 14th. But so in the past, people have gotten groups together. I know Jonathan and I coordinate a group here in Boulder, Colorado. We have a couple hundred people who attend every year, and we do a beautiful sound meditation and water healing ceremony. And this year, obviously, because of the pandemic, people are not able to gather like that in person. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? Because we absolutely know we need World Sound Healing Day just more than ever.
Yeah.
You know, Sandie, we had at that particular time, through last year, and I will say that we did, because unfortunately that is the past. We did this wonderful event in Boulder, as well as other, online and radio things. And at that time, there were well over 200 events occurring throughout the planet, and that were, shall we say, live, and live and in person. Here in Boulder, Andi, we'd have about 200 people, and it was incredible. Oh my God, Sandie, can you imagine 200 people in a sacred space for an hour, just chanting the Ah? We actually chanted into a crystal bowl filled with water. It was in the center of the group, and then at the end of the ceremony, we would drink this water, and it was distilled water, but then it was shifted and changed by the vibrations of all the people who were sounding. I'm telling you, it was sweet and almost psychotropic. It was that powerful and had been changed that much.
And
wow.
And Sandie, this year we are going to have to drink that water virtually, but we, cannot obviously gather in, in-person groups. And so Jonathan and I thought, okay, we've got to figure out a format now to still do World Sound Healing Day. And so we developed on our worldsoundhealingday.org website, we have developed a portal, and people can go to that portal, and if they want to create a group themselves, they can, on whatever platform they might use virtually, but they can post the link to their group. And if a person doesn't want to actually create a group, they can still go to that portal and they can find a group, a link to a group that they'd like to go to. So we have many, many, many right now up. I think there's about 30 or 40.
There's actually over 60, my dear.
Okay.
And
wow.
It's called the Events Portal, and we're so proud of this because this came as a vision. And then a lot of people may think we have a huge team of people who are working with us, but in reality it's very small, and we're very dedicated, and blessed be probably multitaskers and multi-talented. And I had this vision of, what if we could do not only, having pictures and having links to these different online events, and this manifested, and I made this cute little video that perhaps I will, it's a 2-minute video, and it's like, what do a crystal bowl player, a Tibetan monk, a chamber orchestra, and a electronic music techno DJ have in common? And then the answer, they are all presenting at the 2021 World Sound Healing Day. So this is going to be really a potpourri of sacred sound, and I'm so very, very excited. From my level, I like to use the term, it's going to be really these symphonies of consciousness that are going to be manifesting. How cool is that?
I love that, a symphony of consciousness. What a beautiful term. Now, I know that you've published a really interesting 6-part series of blogs in which you explain how we can use sound and consciousness to enhance our immune systems and deal with many of the situations that are presently occurring. I want to talk about those after the break because there's so much rich information in there. So we'll be back in a few moments. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with award-winning musician, composer, writer, teacher, and chant master Jonathan Goldman and his wife and partner, licensed psychotherapist and holistic counsellor Andi Goldman, about World Sound Healing Day, which is happening In a few days' time, on February the 14th, we'll be back with more from Jonathan and Andi after the break.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Mental health. Most people think it means mental illness. Most people are wrong. Mental health doesn't apply to just some of us. Like physical and emotional health, it applies to all of us. We're all susceptible to anxiety and depression, the human conditions. But for some of us, it doesn't stop there. Cracked, the podcast, strips away the shame, embarrassment, fear and stigma by expanding the mental health conversation into areas less visited, from brain and body chemistry, food, nutrition, trauma and the microbiome, to pharmaceutical drugs, psychedelics, meditation, visionary experiences and spiritual awakenings. Cracked, the podcast, explores them all, including the notion that for many, breakdown can be the beginning of breakthrough. For as singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen wrote, there is a crack in everything. It's where the light gets in. Cracked, the podcast, slaying the dragons of mental health. Join the conversation with me, Sandie Sedgbeer, and my co-host, Rebecca Shaper, on the first and third Thursday of every month at 12 noon Eastern Time.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back, Jonathan and Andi Goldman. Now, you and I have had a conversation a few times about The Humming Effect, which is an absolutely fabulous book. And the reason I love it is because it gives everybody the means for a little bit of self-healing. And you've produced a 6-part series blog on your website in which you're sharing about sound and immunity. And this is something that is so important right now. I'd like to kind of go through some of those, the episodes of that particular blog series. You talk in the first one about humming as an antiviral agent. So speak to me about that.
Sandie, I remember Andi and I had this one place in the Boulder area that we go to, which at that particular time had not yet been discovered, but it's a wildlife preserve about 10 minutes drive from our house, and we would walk there every day for about an hour. And on the last time that we went there before, I think there was some sort of COVID lockdown or whatnot, this inner voice said, you really need to work with using your knowledge and expertise on healing and sacred sounds and how to utilize them during this particular time. So I was saying, Andi, I got to do this. I'm getting this message. And I went back, and one of the first things I did was to create a blog that talked about sound and immunity, and I'll go in that in a second. And the other thing I remember, I created this basically free download called I think it's called Healing Codes, Sacred Codes, or something like that. I don't even remember the name of it, but it's a wonderful 15-minute thing that contains all these frequencies that might have the potential of really, really being beneficial. It's almost as though they were created close to 20 years ago, and they were created for this time. That's number one. But number two, yes, we did this blog, and the first thing that we found, it was so interesting, was we found that there were certain medical doctors who were talking about the pandemic and talking about the fact that one thing, they were talking about alternative healing modalities, and one of them, this one doctor who's pretty well known, was talking about using humming, because humming is an antiviral agent, and this is really well known. It's particularly useful for basically assisting in conditions such as sinusitis, which is an inflammation in the sinus cavity. And so that first blog talked about humming to do that, and the release of nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide, which is wonderful when you're in the dentist's office, but nitric oxide, which is, among other things, a vasodilator and is very effective, for enhancing our immune system. So that first article has that.
Well, and Sandie, what we were so excited about was that, having written our book on the humming effect, and humming, when someone hums, there is that humming feeling in their around their cheek, around their nose area, and this is where the vibrations and the frequency really start when you're humming, and that nitric oxide begins to be produced in that area. So when we heard doctors talking about humming as a antiviral modality, we were quite taken.
And it seemed, at least then, that they indicated that one of the major places where some of these nasty little critters first lodge themselves before they go into the lung area is in the sinus cavity. So what if you could somehow, shall we say, use humming as a tool to assist the situation?
Well, and what I'd love to say, because I know that the folks listening to our program today, Sandie, you do so much beautiful work with empowering people to help them to heal and to empower them. And that's the one thing that I love to say about humming, is that we have that power within ourselves that is so simple and so effective, and it can shift and change the frequencies in our body, mind, and spirit. We are empowered through our voice, and that is a pretty powerful thing.
Absolutely. Is there are there any rules around this? Do you have to do it for a certain number of minutes, or, can you just kind of do a bit here and there through the day?
Well, yes. One thing that we have, shall we say, become aware of as we teach this for so many years is the need for fluidity when working with any sort of activity, because people are by nature needing to do their own thing. So, for example, we might do it for 5 minutes lying in bed, although we really recognize that it's usually best if you sit in a chair and you close your eyes and you hum for about 5 minutes. I think that's great, because that also will really present, when we do what is called conscious humming. We can talk a little bit about that in a second. But when when you do that for about 5 minutes, it really creates an incredibly, I go for it for the blissful feeling that emerges after that, because there's so many other neurochemicals besides nitric oxide and melatonin, but you get the, you ultimately, and this is so very, very important as a total different thing, but as a stress releaser, you get the reduction of heart rate, you get the reduction of blood pressure. You get the reduction of brain waves when you even just take some nice deep breaths and begin to hum for even a couple of minutes. I can just assure you that it works, because I am one of these people who, for example, will go to certain places and start getting a little, shall we say, uptight. But I know that if you breathe deeply and just hum, with your eyes closed, and for just even a few minutes, it can change your blood pressure by almost pharmaceutical rates. It's that powerful. That's so amazing.
Is it comparable to meditation in the effect, the physiological effect that it has?
Well, I didn't hear that question, Sandie. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, is it comparable? I mean, how does it compare with meditation for the physiological benefits?
Right, with meditation. Well, meditation is absolutely wonderful and essential, really, for inner peace and, inner balance. Now, when you are incorporating sound into your meditation, it really amplifies that field of inner peace. And I know myself because I have a humming practice that I do, conscious humming, every day for 5 minutes. But what happens is that it's very difficult to have that mind chatter going on when you're actually humming. And so, yes, I think that it can enhance meditation.
And I seem to recall that it actually has, shall we say, some benefits that transcend straight mindfulness or meditation, simply because you are getting the physical resonance, what is called vibroacoustic, the physical vibrations of this, which cause, indeed, the release of certain of these neurochemicals that aren't necessarily happening when you quiet the brain. We think meditation is brilliant, and then meditation coupled with a little bit of sound is the key.
It's interesting that, the antiviral effects. I mean, you mentioned that the research shows that humming also releases melatonin, which has been mentioned quite a lot in, terms of if you're looking to, take supplements that are going to help you resist COVID, melatonin is one of them. And if you can't, in England, you cannot get melatonin over the counter. It's not allowed. You have to have a prescription. So people in England could benefit just from humming.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. In fact, the release of melatonin and nitric oxide, those two are just very profoundly powerful. But humming will induce melatonin for sure.
Yeah. And, of course, melatonin is an anti-aging so there's another benefit there.
Well, here's another benefit, too, Sandie, is that, helping us sleep. Melatonin is excellent for that. And so if a person is lying in bed and not able to sort of stop that mind chatter, cannot go to sleep, if you will start to hum, it will begin to release melatonin, and it can be a very, very big help to helping someone fall asleep.
And I just want to suggest for a second that we hum for the most part when we feel content or happy. Little babies, even the elderly, and certainly people unconsciously hum with them. But we are talking about more or less doing a hum for the most part on about one tone, just going or whatever tone works for you, but just not moving it around that much. You can, of course, but the idea is just, basically holding a tone and humming seems to be just really so helpful. And it shifts and changes it to another level, from it being a playful activity to it actually being, it feels great, you feel great, and it's more powerful.
Well, it's like having an internal massage. And so that really brings in that inner relaxation and stress reduction. So that humming is fantastic. And we encourage it. And yeah, Jonathan.
Well, one of the really interesting things that we like to do, and that's why we call it conscious humming, is because when people, if they sit there with their eyes closed and they hum for even a few minutes, they may experience inner sound and sound that they've never experienced before, simply because when we're doing unconscious humming, we don't really feel and aren't really necessarily aware of the vibrations, where they're affecting us. And when you begin to become aware of it, it helps induce these different, phenomenological effects.
And certainly when we feel a sense of inner peace, we feel more positive about our life. There's, more harmony that seems to be emitted from our field. And, and I'm kind of going back to thinking about World Sound Healing Day, where we want people to hold that intention of compassion and loving kindness and healing, and certainly even humming for world peace can be enormously beneficial.
Totally. We almost this year went for the hum for world peace, but we had so much, if you like, morphic field of working with the sound, if you're going to be working with a sound, to suggest, but any sound. And just as a thought, when you're working with the hum, literally one of the things that happens is in those articles, getting back there, we talk about the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, there's polyvagal theory that is very, very important. They found the vagus nerve almost totally controls the entire nervous system. It's that large and that powerful. And what's so interesting is that there are only two things, it seems, three things if you consider meditation. That is one thing, but that's not necessarily physiological. It's part of it. The other two things that really affect what is called vagal tone, and vagal tone is basically your heart rhythms and all that stuff. One of them, of course, is deep breathing, and the other one is humming. And of course, I don't know that we even knew this or this particular term when we wrote the humming effect, but we certainly discovered that deep breathing and humming is at least a physiological key to helping induce vagal toning, high vagus nerve response, which is very, very key for what is called heart rate variability. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then taking that one step further, bringing in World Sound Healing Day, but also bringing in anything else you want, they found that when you are doing deep breathing and feeling a state of gratitude, of appreciation, if you can, of compassion and love, then the electromagnetic field that encompasses your body becomes anywhere from 50 to 500 to some even perceive 5,000 times greater. And I will suggest that working with a hum makes it even greater. And I would almost say working with any self-created sound, because you know what, Sandie? There is a reason why the various sacred texts on our planet are vocalized for the most part. They're chanted, whispered, sung, or spoken. And that is because sound helps amplify this field even more. It helps amplify the intentionality of the prayers. It helps focus the intentionality of these prayers and meditations.
Mm. And you also say that changing the pitch of your hum affects where the sound is vibrating in the body. So you can actually send, I would imagine, the healing, the intention, the sound, the vibration to specific parts of the body if you wanted to focus on that.
Absolutely, Sandie. In fact, just as an example, in the past, if I've had a headache, for instance, I will go into conscious humming and I will visualize that hum going directly to that part of my head that is, hurting. And so you can do that really with any part of your body, because it is that intention that is coupled with the hum. And so we can visualize the sound going to whatever part of our body we might need.
But particularly for most people, when they start humming, indeed, changing the pitch is really so important, because as a reality, in terms of vibroacoustics, different pitches will vibrate in different parts of your body. So you couple the pitch or the frequency of the hum with your intentionality, and it's a win-win situation.
Now
so
you
also... You
Sorry,
can
Jonathan.
indeed project sound into your stomach or into your chest or into your throat or into wherever you want. So the head is great, but also you can do it for your, in your heart area or your lung area or even your, belly, Andi.
Well, and one of the things that's actually really fun to do is when you first start doing conscious humming, to kind of experiment and changing your pitch and having it go to different parts of your body and seeing how it affects you individually, because, of course, our own experience lets us know, where that sound is really making a difference. But it's kind of fun to play around with it.
Yeah, you say that you can also maximize the resonance by touching the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. What does that actually do then?
Well, that's an old yogic trick that allows you to, if you like, send the vibrations up through the roof of your mouth, through the what is called the sinus cavity, and then the sphenoid bone, where the pituitary, pineal, and hypothalamus sit, and you can literally vibrate parts of your, shall we say, essential parts of your brain with your own sound. So that that's even a little trick to assist it even more, if specifically you're looking to resonate the parts of your brain.
Mm. And the effects are cumulative as well. I mean, the more you do it, the more you're helping yourself.
Yes, absolutely. The more you practice. That's why they call it a practice, because it just really does get more powerful and makes a bigger difference the more that you do it.
And in fact, the more you do it, also you become more adept. I'm just going to demonstrate for you. So I'm going to first start toning my forehead area and bring the tone down to my chest area. Check this out. Notice I didn't change my pitch at all. I simply changed the intention. And by doing that, I was able to feel and amplify the vibrations of the sound in different parts of my body. So I did it then, and you could not feel a difference, because we're pretty good hummers at this point.
What would happen if I just listened to you humming instead of doing it myself?
Well, that's what we call vibroacoustics, because you're going to you're listening to it. Psychoacoustics, because you're listening to it. But if you actually hum along with it, the vibroacoustic effects, which actually affects the cells of our body, it's much more powerful to actually hum yourself. Now, you can listen, that's fine, but when you actually hum yourself, it's going to go deeper.
And what's interesting is that a couple of well-known people, I believe one of them was Lynn McTaggart, actually, was working with this other scientist, and they had a group of hundreds of these different, I think they were businessmen or business people from throughout the planet, and they wanted to put them, if you like, into a state of coherence together. And so as an experiment, they played a recording that I did called the Cosmic Hum. And this one scientist said, and within a few minutes, these people were all entrained to the music, and they were basically in a state of coherence. So listening to music, listening to the humming sound does it. Listening to music will, as Andi was saying, create this psychoacoustic effect, which means the sound goes into your ear, into your brain, into your body, and affecting your nervous system as well. So you will entrain or begin to resonate with the music. So all different music is very, very useful and attractive and important to us. So we would never say, just listen to this one type of music. But particularly since there is, if you like, a relationship between our nervous system and particularly our heart and brain and the rhythms of the music that you listen to. If you want to, shall we say, be in a state of relaxation and chill out, you probably don't want to be listening to any real fast music necessarily. So, being aware of the music that you're listening to and what it's doing to your body is so very important for people in terms of using sound and music for their own health.
Well, we're almost out of time now, but I want to just bring us back to World Sound Healing Day, because clearly, we can join you on that day in, making the sounds that are healing, but then we can also go into humming and give ourselves some healing.
Totally, all these different ways. And we invite people, it's called the Events Portal on worldsoundhealingday.org. And people can go there, and once again, we've got now about 60 different events occurring. We expect a whole lot more because we're still a while away from this, and we're getting feedback and reports of people creating it. They haven't simply listed it, and all of a sudden, I'm sure we're going to be besieged by all these different events coming in the last day, and we're going to go, oh my God, but that'll be...
But Sandie, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to let people know about World Sound Healing Day. And we hope that all of our listeners will come join us.
Totally.
Absolutely.
The purpose
and I love Sorry,
Jonathan,
I was just going to say, I love the fact that you're doing it on Valentine's Day, because everybody is primed for love on that day.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And the purpose is to heal our planet,
Absolutely.
heal the water, and also just raise our consciousness. What a blessing that would be, huh?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Jonathan, Andi, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for doing this and keeping it going.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandie. We have thoroughly enjoyed this time with you.
We are really grateful. Thank you.
And many blessings.
I'll talk to you soon. Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So for more information about the humming effect, Sound Healing for Health and Happiness, you can visit Jonathan and Andi Goldman's website at healingsounds.com. And for more information on World Sound Healing Day, visit the website worldsoundhealingday.org. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. You can learn more about me and the No BS Spiritual Book Club at sedgbeer.com. In the meantime, I'll be back next week with another edition of What Is Going On. Till then, it's goodbye from me.